Hello, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we're going through all of my queer reads of 2024. But before we hop in the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love all things books, and happy Bookmas Day 5. So I'm going to do one of my favorite things that I get to do on my music channel, which is Taylor Made Pop Culture. If you like that one, we're taking a bit of a break over there in favor of this right now. And that is we're going to be doing a bracket battle. So I have 32 books on here. It's a mixture of fiction, nonfiction. Really, my main criteria was one of the main characters queer. So some of these are going to be a little gayer than the others. And is this representative of all the queer books I read this year? No, but I can only fit 32 on this bracket, as well as there, for some reasons, certain books will not be discussed. If you're curious, you can always check out my StoryGraph, which should be linked in the description box down below. So the way this works is I have basically put this in the order of how I read them or completed them this year, and then they're going to pop in spots 1 through 32. That's not me ranking them. That's just the way I read them, you know, in here. And then we're just going to do battles of which one I thought was better. And through the process, we can talk about, you know, would I read again, would I recommend, my thoughts, comments, concerns, all of that. So without further ado, let's hop into all the queer books I read this year. All right, so the first bracket or first battle is going to be The Ones We Burn by Rebecca Mix versus the last book, so the first book and the last queer book that I finished this year, and that is This Winter by Alice Oseman. So The Ones We Burn by Rebecca Mix, she actually has described this as a sapphic Zuko Katara retelling. So for all of those who are fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, you know that a very common non-canon ship is Zuko and Katara, the big enemies to lover situation. Did I recognize this while I was reading it? No. But essentially the plot follows, I think, Ranka is her name. She is a blood witch from the northern tribes who is set out to be betrothed to the Sun King, cannot remember, is it Galen? Sun King Galen? I think that's his name. As part of this big pact that's been kept up for years to maintain peace between the communities. However, she is sent there because a lot of witches are noticing that a lot of death is happening amongst them and a lot of discrimination. So she is sent there to kill him. And while she is there, she starts to form a little relationship with all three of them, but also his sapphic sister. So this one was definitely a very fantasy, sapphic, romance kind of on the back burner, but romance still at the forefront. And at the back of my edition, there was a cute little novella following Galen and his love interest, which is also queer. And then This Winter by Alice Oseman, I literally just finished no more than like 10-20 minutes ago. This is the little novella that takes place between Heartstoppers Volume 4 and 5. If you saw Heartstopper Season 3, you'll have seen the Christmas episode, and this just follows the Spring siblings. I didn't realize that this one was just all going to be following, like, it follows Tori, Charlie, and Oliver. Didn't expect it. I thought we were going to get, like, just Nick and Charlie perspective, but she was really cute. She was really sweet. I gave This Winter 5 stars, and I think I gave The Ones We Burned somewhere between 4.75 stars. Is it bad of me to say I would go back and read This Winter more than The Ones We Burned just because it's a novella? Probably. I'm just thinking in terms of, like, fun, sweet enjoyment this winter. But at the time when I was reading The Ones We Burned, the witch vibes were just immaculate. I'm going to choose This Winter, though. I mean, I did give it 5 stars. Then we have Dread Nation, and then we have Bi, the Hidden Culture, History, and Science of Bisexuality. So we have a fiction versus a nonfiction. So Dread Nation is going to be a little less queer than the others. This one definitely focuses more on race and that aspect. You'll see that I can remember plots, but names go out the window. I'm pretty sure her name is Jane. So this is a book that came out the gate and surprised me. So it follows Jane McKean, who is at this training school. So you're following a world where essentially zombie apocalypse happened during the Civil War. So now we are a couple of years later, so in about the 1880s is what we placed it. And the world has reached, America has reached sort of like an agreement where all these formerly enslaved individuals, for the most part, go out and train to be attendants or fight zombies for the rich people. And during this, Jane is doing her best to, you know, just make it through life and get to that status, but she's a little bit of a rebel. And throughout the story, you start to see a lot of cracks break through the facade of, like, is the zombie problem as under control as we thought it was? But the reason it's on here is because we do find out in the book that Jane and her counterpart are a little queer. We've got a little bisexual and asexuality representation, and I'm very excited to see what book 2 brings us. Then we have Bi, the Hidden Culture, History, and Science of Bisexuality by Julia Shaw. This is a nonfiction book all about, bisexuality. Who we are, where we come from, it talks about threesomes and polyamory and the stigma around that concerning bisexuals and sort of all of the, biphobia and issues that we face. And obviously the author herself is bisexual. This is an audiobook that I did listen to. It was a very quick audiobook. I think I'm going to pick Dread Nation. I don't rank nonfiction, but I think Dread Nation was just a fun, surprising read for me. It touches on a lot of hard topics, but man, was that so easy to get into. So if you're looking for like gothic, historical, like horror fantasy, this one's with you. There is a smidgen, maybe little hints of romance, but it's really just mostly fantasy. Then we have The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by Maggie Takuta Hall, and then Queer Villains of Myth and Legend, cannot remember the name, but we have once again a fiction versus a nonfiction. So The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea, and here's where we start forgetting character names. The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea essentially follows two people. One is a pirate on a ship who essentially joined the pirate ship at a very young age and was born a woman but has lived her life out as a male. And then you sort of just have them discovering their gender identity and sexuality throughout the whole story. And on this pirate ship, it masks itself as a travel or like passenger ship. And when they go out to sea, they basically put a 180 on the passengers. They're like, psych, rich people, you're now going to be sold into slavery. And one of these people on there is this girl, Evelyn, I think is her name. And she has essentially been married off to the highest bidder in order to form a relationship or a political relationship. And she's like, I don't want to do this. And when she's on the boat, she is being guarded by the pirate in question. Why can I remember their name? I'm not sure. And, relationship forms there, and you follow their journeys of trying to escape the life that they were essentially sold into. And the whole premise of this is that in the story, mermaids are considered high value because a mermaid's blood can essentially give you this really high experience, and Evelyn is the only one who doesn't go out of their way to kill the mermaid. Then we have Queer Villains of Myth and Legend. This was another nonfiction audiobook I listened to this year, and it is, as it says, it goes through all of the queer villains that we have either heard of in mythology, in TV, in religion. I mean, Jennifer's Body got a little shout out in there, a little Minotaur, all of things, Medusa. So if you're just like, I want to sit down, this is definitely a good one for the Halloween season. The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea and Queer Villains of Myth and Legends were kind of just meh reads for me. I gave The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea a little bit of the 3-star range, and then of course I didn't rate the other one. I'm probably going to say The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea just because I think I'd pick a fiction over a nonfiction book, But the reason that The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea didn't rank as higher is just because I didn't find myself connecting with the characters as much as I thought. But this is a multi-character 3-part story, and I do believe the sequel came out this year. So then we have Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. I didn't plan this out, but both of these are Talia Hibbert books. So Take a Hint, Danny Brown is the second book in the Brown Sisters series, and you're following Danny Brown, who is a PhD fellow student at university, and she's currently in the process of teaching a class. And one day she is not aware that the fire alarm drill is about to go off, so she's on the elevator, alarm goes off, elevator gets stuck, so her friend, who just happens to be the guard for that building, runs in, saves her, carries her out princess style. They go viral on social media, and he's like, hey, can you be my fake date so we can get some good publicity for my charity? And she's like, sure. And then romance ensues from there. She's bisexual. In this story, we're also touching on her and her former relationships, one particularly with a woman. Then Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute is Talia Hibbert's YA debut. Oh, am I remembering? It follows Celine and what's his name? Brad. Celine and Brad. So Brad is our bisexual in question here. I wonder if Talia Hibbert just likes writing bisexual characters. But essentially, Celine and Brad used to be best friends growing up, but something went down between them and they went their separate ways. But now they are both competing for this highly prestigious scholarship through the Catherine Breakspear program. So they are basically stuck working together in this survival skills workshop. And while they are stuck there working together, they rekindle their friendship and then their romance. and a lot of things go through. Talia Hibbert likes to discuss mental health throughout both of her books, and both of the male main characters do experience mental health struggles, so do keep that in mind. I ended up giving Take a Hint, Danny Brown 4.5 or 4.75 stars, and High Suspicion, Unfairly Cute 5 stars. I'm going to go with that one. It was the first one that I read by her, so I may be a little biased, but I recommend all of Talia Hibbert's books, at least the 4 that I've read. Then we have Maybe Meant to Be by K.L. Walther, and this book is Gay by Juno Dawson. I have a clear winner in my head, but I will explain to you which one of these. We have a one against, we're having a lot of like fiction versus nonfiction going on. Is that fair? I don't know. But Maybe Meant to Be is K.L. Walther's, I think this is actually her first debut Taylor Swift novel. So it is following Dual's perspective. So can I remember either of these names? No. But you're following these two best friends. One's a girl, one's a guy. Everyone thinks that they're going to be together, but, in the background we find out that actually she's in love with his brother and he's gay. You're following a queer plotline where he is essentially discovering his sexuality or hiding his sexuality because he's fear of coming out. And while he's doing this, the new boy in school catches his eye and they start a little relationship in secret. And she has a relationship with his brother, but, things are complicated because she's trying to keep his secret from everyone, and his brother's is worried about all the rumors that they're supposed to be together. Needless to say, this whole story made me just mad because I don't think the coming out plotline was handled very well, and I don't know that K.L. Walther is queer, so it kind of just frustrated me the whole time, the whole story. Definitely read trigger warnings for this one because it's dark. It is Taylor Swift inspired, so it's all based on the You Belong With Me song situation. But needless to say, this one was not my favorite read of the year. Then we have This Book is Gay by Juno Dawson, one of the most banned books in America because, gosh darn it, if we have a queer self-help book for those who are coming out for the first time, or, for those who need to understand the coming out process, who are just being introduced to friends and family in the queer community. This one was a good, fun read. I do have the physical copy. I have the updated copy. And I'm just going to say, I'm going to recommend this book to everyone because I'm always going to recommend banned books. This Book is Gay is going to win. There we go. Then we had You Had Me at Happy Hour and Mooncakes? Mooncakes. Mooncakes and Fake Dates is what it's supposed to say. I'll see if I can fix that down the line. So You Had Me at Happy Hour is an adult contemporary romance by Timothy Janovsky, and I believe it is his most recent release besides his Christmas release. So this book follows Julian and Greg. Julian is an introverted waiter sommelier at his aunt and uncle's restaurant. He's dealing with a lot of mental health struggles, as well as Greg. Greg was once this big, drinking, alcohol influencer sort of guy, but he's down on his luck. He's dealing with some struggles, so he moves in town and becomes the new bartender for the restaurant that Julian works at, and they start out clashing because we've got introvert versus extrovert opposites attract, and the issues arise, and then Julian's uncle's like, sit you two down. You two need to work together to make a series of happy hours to drum up business for our, failing restaurant, as well as bring you two together and bring them together at is. We start with a sex pact, then we just kind of go into romance. And it's fun, sexy. It does deal a lot with mental health struggles, so do keep that in mind. Mooncakes and Fake Dates by Cher Lee is a YA queer romance between Dylan, I feel like, is one of the characters' names. Whoo, the struggle to remember a character's name. But essentially you're following this one guy who works at his aunt's, another restaurant situation. Works at his aunt's restaurant, fast food takeout restaurant. And one day he comes to deliver the food, and this really annoying British man was like, you messed up my order, you're gonna kill me, treats him poorly. And in the background, this other guy comes up and is like, dude, get over it. So feeling bad for our kid at the restaurant, this guy, is it Dylan? I don't know, comes up and is like, hey, I'm sorry. Also, proposition, I need a fake date for my cousin's wedding to piss off my dad. Also, I'm going to give your aunt some money to help start up her business. And, fake dates turn into more, and a lot of things ensue. Both of them deal with food. I'm actually not sure which one I preferred. I think Fake Dates and Mooncakes was definitely a little bit of a cuter, fun experience. Also, this is basically described as Heartstopper meets Crazy Rich Asians, so if you're into that vibe, Fake Dates and Mooncakes might be your jam. You Have Me at Happy Hour is definitely a good fall one. I think I'm going to do a Fake Dates and Mooncakes. All right. Then we have The Grimoire of Grey Fates, and Every Time You Hear That Song. So we have a fantasy standalone versus a romance standalone, and both of them are YA. So The Grimoire of Grey Fates, I think, is actually written by 18 different authors. So essentially, if you're looking for trans-inclusive and queer-inclusive Hogwarts, this is your vibe, because we don't support that lady. So you're following essentially a school. Could I remember the name? No. Ask me to remember any of the characters' names. There's 18 characters to go through. So you're following this magical school that recently diversified its class list to include, outside of the standard white cis and all that situation. And that night before, we're following a professor who everyone hated on campus because he was just a big old bigot, is killed on campus. And now you're following these 18 different perspectives of trying to figure out what went down on campus, as well as people of like, who's this, who's that? The teachers are interrogating you and everything. So you're following essentially 24 hours of that going down, and each chapter is a different hour with a different student going through their process of discovering themselves, but also figuring a little bit out of like, what's going on? Why am I being interrogated? Who's this person? Situation. And then Every Time You Hear That Song by Jenna Voris is a 5-star read of this year. Is it 5 stars because the vibes were just vibing at the correct time? Maybe. So you are following, cannot remember her name, but she is our bisexual FMC, and it's dual timeline. So you're following, I still can't remember her name. You're following her. She is dealing with a lot of pressure on her mom because her mom was sick growing up, and she's trying her best to get some money to, get out of this small town and try and help and support herself and her mom. But her favorite artist that her mom loved, Deckley Castle, recently passed away and issued a contest to everyone to go out and find the clues that lead to her final unheard album. And she's like, I'm gonna go do this, and I'm gonna get that money and get those songs for us. So she enrolls her best friend one of her friends at the workshop. He's a guy, so we have a bisexual ending up with a male main character. And then you're also dually following Deckley Castle, who is a country star rising to fame in the 60s and 70s, dealing with misogyny and all the things that go along with it, while also having a secret sapphic life and all the things that go down there. Man, you're just rooting for him. You're rooting for Deckley. You are rooting for Deckley. All I'm going to say is play your On Your Own Kid in that last couple chapters, because that's what got me. I'm going to choose Every Time You Hear That Song, just because, whoo, the emotions I cried. I cried for that. Then we have A Bond Me for Two versus So Let Them Burn. So we have another romance versus fantasy. Both of them are YA. So Bond Me for Two is a YA debut by Trinity Nguyen this year. And you're following Lon and Vivi. So Lon lives in Saigon in Vietnam, has grown up there her whole life. She and her dad used to run this blog called A Bond Me for Two that highlighted the street food of Vietnam. But her dad passed away a while ago, and she is sort of still dealing with the grief of that. Also the burden of trying to make sure her mother and their business that her dad and her family before him ran, which is a banh mi cart. So she's sort of dealing with that. And in comes Vivi, who is the daughter of Vietnamese immigrants who live in America, and these parents do not or refuse to talk about their life in Vietnam. So she lies to them, says she's actually going to be spending a semester in Singapore when she's actually going to Saigon to find her mother's long-lost sister and mother. And these two essentially, bring together a friendship, and they start helping each other on their paths, and then sapphic romance ensues from there. And then we have So Let Them Burn, which is another debut this year by Camila Cole. Oh no, am I remembering names? Farron, I think is the name. Farron? One of the names, possibly. So this one is interesting because it throws the Chosen One trope on its head, because you're following the Chosen One 5 years after things have gone down. So one of the sisters we are following is 17-ish, 17, 18, and she pleaded to the gods to give her the power to destroy their oppressors and essentially their colonizers. And she was given that power. Now, 5 years later, she is essentially like bearing the brunt of what it means to be the chosen one after the country is going through the process of rebuilding. And she's essentially always called upon to be there at the castle with the young queen to always represent the family. And then the other sister is always been sort of in the shadow of her younger sister. So she's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to join the army. Then she doesn't get chosen. But then accidentally she finds out that she might have a little link with these dragons, and the sisters are split up. And one of them is trying to figure out how to break the link between dragon and rider, and the other one is like, I'm gonna act as a spy. And that goes down. Romance ensues there. We have one asexual and one lesbian sister, and all of that goes down. The romance in this was just, the romance was so good. The romance were so great for them, but I felt more for So Let Them Burn. Plus, that's a series, so I get to live that out one more time. Then we have Puck Shy versus Honeybloods. Oh, that's right. Puck Shy, is it? Yes, it's queer. I was like trying to think like what my brain was trying to go there. So Puck Shy is the second one in the Brother Puckers like little novella holiday series by Kayla Gross. The first one is queer and polyamorous, and this one is also queer and polyamorous. So you're following the sister of the girl in the first book. She is a bisexual. One night she runs into her sister's partner's brother, who she has a real big crush on because he's a famous hockey player, at a sex club where she is performing with her friend / partner, who also happens to be a woman. And then they're like, anyone want to come up? And he comes up. Things go down, and then they just start a little relationship. Very spicy, very much so erotic. If you're looking for ethical non-monogamy with also a bisexual female, this one's you. Then we have Honeybloods, which is a YA novella following Honey, who essentially had the Jennifer's Body experience where these band of like teenage vampire boys attacks her one night. Doesn't actually kill her, but does turn her, and then she goes, kills a cop, and she's like, okay, gotta call up the ex-bestie and be like, 1, can you help me bear this body? 2, can you help me go on a road trip so I can kill the men who turned me? And I guess ex-bestie is like, sure. Sapphic goes from there. And yeah, Honeyblood just kind of bored me. I didn't really have a lot, and you think Jennifer's Body premise would have you, considering how much I love that movie. But in the end, Puck Shy took this one out. All right, up next is Vampires Never Get Old versus Napkins and Other Distractions. So Vampires Never Get Old is a series of YA novellas all turning the head on the vampire myth. Most of them are queer. Most of them are, a little bit fruity in some aspect. And I just enjoyed it. It was a 4.75 star read. If you've seen the show First Kill on Netflix, the novella that inspired it is from this book. Napkins and Other Distractions by M.A. Wardell. This is the third and I believe final book in a Teachers in Love series, and it follows Vincent and the other guy's name. But essentially you have a little age gap going on here. It's like 40 and like 52. So later in life lovers. So you have the principal who's been divorced from his wife for a few years, who's always identified as bisexual, but hasn't been out with a man in a very long time. So he gets on the dating apps and goes out with Vincent, who is also dealing heavily with OCD and has found it troublesome to find dates with other guys. But these two connect on a level after, failed date number 1 leads to them finding out that actually they have to work together for this school thing that's going down, so they can both keep their jobs and they don't fail. So as they're working together, spice ensues, and that goes on from there. I'm gonna choose Vampires Never Get Old just because I think it's a fun grand old time. Then we have Fireworks versus All Boys Aren't Blue, so I have another fiction versus a non-fiction. So Fireworks is a YA novel following a girl who identifies as bisexual, and she does get hit on. This one's a little bit of the less queer because you're really following her relationship with her best friend, who when they were in middle school went off to be a K-pop idol, and she has been kind of smitten over him for a while, and then he makes a sudden return home and their relationship ensues from there. But she is bisexual and they discuss her bisexuality, and she does get a little flirt on with some women in the book. Then we have All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, another banned book. This is a queer YA novel following the story of George M. Johnson's life from when he was younger all the way up to his 30s when he was writing this book, describing the Black and queer experience of growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, of being afraid to come out and the situations that ensue from there. I love both of these books, but I'm going to choose All Boys Aren't Blue. Then we have Icebreaker versus Sounds Fake But Okay, another non-fiction versus a fiction book. So Icebreaker, not like the very popular Icebreaker. Icebreaker is a YA hockey romance following Mickey James III, who is stuck in the shadow of his very famous hockey-playing father, and grandfather. And he is entering his first year of college with the knowledge that he is about to be drafted into the NHL. So his first year of college really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And he is just hung up on what he wants to do with his life. And while simultaneously also dealing with the fact that he's a closeted bisexual man, as well as he's dealing with severe depression. And you really discuss that throughout the whole thing. But while he's on this hockey team, he runs into his longtime hockey rival, Jason Caulfield, who just also happens to be a closeted gay man. And romance ensues from there. This is very much so a darker, more serious toned YA novel that deals a lot with mental health and the pressures of living in a society that, in a sport that does not, accept particularly queer men. Then we have Sounds Fake But Okay. This is a nonfiction audiobook talked by these very popular podcasters who are asexual. Did not know them before this. I was just looking for something to expand my queer nonfiction area, and I had not read a lot of asexual nonfiction. It's a very short, quick listen in terms of audiobook, and it just kind of describes the asexual experience. I think both of these, I gave Icebreaker 4 stars. I don't really rate nonfiction. I think I would choose Sounds Fake But Okay, just because Icebreaker, it's very well written. However, two things. One, open-ended. I like finality ending. Two, sad books are not usually my vibe, and I didn't realize it was going to be as sad as it was when I did pick it up. So still very well done. I think it's just a product of not my vibe and not at the time. So then we have Out of the Blue versus X's and Foes. Two very much so just kind of like cheeky, like just funny YA queer romances. So Out of the Blue is a little bit of a fantasy romance by Jason June. We love Jason June in this house. Jay's Gay Agenda, 5-star read all the way. And we are following this mermaid from the sea. They come out. They are on their month on land journey, and for this journey, for the month on land, they are trying to discover whether they want to stay amongst the humans or not. But before they do that, they have to find a human to help. And while he's on land, while they're on land, they find Sean. And Sean recently got broken up with by his shitty ex-boyfriend. And Sean's like, I guess I could use someone to help me make my boyfriend jealous. And you know what, mermaid? He's like, sure. They're like, sure. And, they fake date. And for a month, the fake dating becomes romance and all that ensues. And it's a little bit of an aquamarine situation. Find out that one of them's a mermaid and all that. And it's just a funny, just sweet little time. And then we have X's and Foes, which follows two. One is a bisexual FMC. Then we have a demisexual biromantic man. So I think it's Emma and Caleb are main characters. They used to be best friends, but things went awry when feelings came into it. So now they don't speak, but they have their eyes on this person, and they're like, we both want them. And Caleb's like, you always still the person I want. Emma's like, no, I don't. So they make a pact. Whoever can get that person to kiss them first wins the pact. And throughout this pact of them hanging out together, romance ensues from there. I'm just going to say X's and Foes touches on a lot harder topics than Out of the Blue. So do check your trigger warnings for X's and Foes. Am I going to choose Out of the Blue? Yes. Yes, I am. Just because X's and Foes is like, can you give a character a break? Like, at some point, the trauma can end. At some point, the trauma can end. Then we have That Self-Same Metal versus Gender Queer. Ooh, two amazing queer reads of the year. So That Self-Same Metal is the first book in a fantasy trilogy, as far as I know, by Brittany N. Williams. And you are following Joan, who is the fight master for the Globe Theater at the time that Shakespeare is alive. Only thing is in the secret, she actually has these metal bending powers, little Avatar Last Airbender, that she has been endowed by the Orisha. And during the time that she is working there, the pact between Fae and humans is broken, so now Fae are running amok and eating and destroying and doing their little thing. And she is the only one who has the ability to kill Fae because she can summon iron, which can harm them mortally, from her hands. And you are following her adventures fighting the Fae king, queen situation throughout the whole book. And we have she's bisexual, we have a little throuple situation that might go about, and it's just fun. Great times, 5 stars. Genderqueer by Maya Kababe. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. We are following this. It's essentially a graphic memoir following Maya's life coming out as genderqueer and, I don't know what they identify. Just basically queer and genderqueer, and the experience growing up through that, told through pictures and all that. And it was just so good. Another banned book on this list. I am going to choose That Selfsame Metal, just because, ooh, I still think about that to this day. It's Legendborn status for me in terms of like thinking. But genderqueer is up there with one that recommended. It was a stacked battle. It was a stacked battle. And we're losing on to the last two battles. So first up is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson versus The Boyfriend subscription by Stephen Salvatore. So A Dowry of Blood is a retelling of Dracula's brides from Constanta's perspective. So talking about her becoming the first bride of Dracula in her mind. And then as them growing up, sort of her like, oh, now Dracula's got a new bride. And like I'm starting to notice he's not so great. Then we've got a new bride who just happens to be a man. So this polyamorous situation kind of ensues between the brides of Dracula up through them killing Dracula. If you know the story of Dracula, it's not a surprise. And it's a very short read, a very dark one. Then we have The Boyfriend subscription, which is a queer retelling of Pretty Woman. So you find this one guy who recently lost his business after his ex-husband, who turned out to be a piece of shit again, essentially ex-husband's father sued him and is like, I technically own your business and now you have no cash and you're going to have to move home as a 30-year-old man with no money. And one day at a bar, seated little bar, this hot man in a suit walks in and they're like, let's just get together. And they have a fun little night, only to find out that this hot man is a very big rich man who owns a sex app company, like sexual meeting app company. And he's like, I need a boyfriend for a little bit, for me and my sister's wedding. And he's like, I guess so. I'll take the money. But also, like, I'm just a nice guy. And, things ensue from there. Is it super insta-lovey? Yes. So if you don't like insta-love, not your vibe. Is it very much so, like, could it fall into cringy, Harlequin romance area? Yes. Will I choose it? Maybe, because I love the funny vibes. Then we have the Nick and Charlie novella by Alice Oseman, and then we have Kiss and Tell by Adib Khorram. So Nick and Charlie is essentially, I think it must have been one of the first, if not the first, Heartstopper situations that we got. So this is actually taking place after the events of Book 5, Heartstopper. So this is sort of near the conclusion of Nick and Charlie's, like, roller coaster that we're following. So this is following Nick and Charlie as Charlie is dealing with not wanting Nick to go off to college, and that whole situation that ensues from there. Then we have Kiss and Tell by Adib Khorram, and he's the author of Darius the Great Is Not Okay. I have not read his most popular book, so I can't speak on that. This is following, what is his name? Essentially, it's following this world sensation boy group, boy band, whatever you want to, kind of like One Direction if they were diverse and had queer people in there. Well, you never know. A little more diverse, a little more queer. And one of the token gay in the story just recently publicly broke up with one of the members' brothers. And not only is that, but this member's brother put their sex on blast. And he's like, okay, dealing with it, trying to be the openly gay pop star and trying to fit this, like, the good gay bubble. And while he's on tour, he starts to form a relationship with one of the members of their opening act, and following their relationship, going public and all that situation. I think both of these were a 4-star rating for me. Do I choose Nick and Charlie for the sheer fact that I'm attached to Heartstopper? Yes. But if you're looking for, like, queer boy band vibes, Kiss and Tell for you. So let's move into our next round. This should be a little easier because I've already gone through all of them, so we should fly through it. All right, so round 2, we have This Winter by Alice Oseman versus Dread Nation. I gave This Winter a 5-star and Dread Nation a 4.75 stars. Trying to think. Dread Nation, I'm going to give the win just because I got a lot more content out of that. And then we have The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea by Maggie Tsukuda Hall versus High Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. 5-star read versus like a 3-ish star read. High Suspicious is going to win. Then we have This Book is Gay versus Mooncakes and Fake Dates. Oh, I'm going to choose This Book is Gay. Just in terms of, like, I feel like I just connected with that one more. Every Time You Hear That Song by Jenna Voris by So Let Them Burn. Okay, so here's the thing. I cried listening to Every Time You Hear That Song. I gave it 5 stars. Was it 5 stars because of the moment? Maybe, but sometimes they just hit in the moment. But So Let Them Burn, every time I think back on it, the romance, oh man, did it get me. So I'm going to give it to So Let Them Burn. I'm sorry, but the romance just, it had me and I want it back. Puck Shy versus Vampires Never Get Old. I'm going to give it to Vampires Never Get Old just because Puck Shy is just really more of a steamy novella situation, and Vampires Never Get Old is a series of novellas, so you get a lot of, you just get a lot more out of it, I guess. Okay, All Boys Aren't Blue versus Sounds Fake But Okay. These are both 2 non-fictions that I listen to. All Boys Aren't Blue is just going to take the win just because that had a more emotional impact on me, and I highly recommend it. But both are good listens. Then we have Out of the Blue versus That Self-Same Metal. Don't. Yes, it got it. That Self-Same Metal edged out the rating by 2.5. Out of the Blue is just super fun, lighthearted. It's just like, if this is the book, like if you're looking for just a good like time, just something fun to like ease your soul, that one's that. But That Self-Same Metal, if you're gonna give me Legendborn vibes, you're gonna hold up to it. Then we have The Boyfriend subscription versus Nick and Charlie. I'm just gonna give it to The Boyfriend subscription just because Nick and Charlie, she was a fun, sweet little novella, but she's not my favorite out of the Heartstopper series. And yeah, let's move on to the next round. So up next we have Dread Nation versus Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. My brain knows that Highly Suspicious got a 5 star. But I'm pretty sure Dread Nation also got a 4.75 star. And in my head, it's just the thing of like, Dread Nation has a sequel that I know is going to be superior. So it's like in my head, I'm like, I have anticipation for that. But I love Talia Hibbert so much. I'm going to choose Highly Suspicious. Yeah. Then we have This Book Is Gay versus So Let Them Burn. No. I'm going to choose So Let Them Burn. Just because. Same with Dread Nation. I know Dread Nation didn't win that one. But the book, listen, the sequel. I need to know what happens. I need to know what happens because the ending. Vampires Never Get Old versus All Boys Aren't Blue. I'm going to choose All Boys Aren't Blue just because I think that one had more of an impact on me. Not that, listen, some of the Vampires Never Get Old stories, they said they had some impact. Then That Self-Same Metal versus The Boyfriend subscription. This is not a battle. This is a clear stomping into the ground of The Boyfriend subscription because That Self-Same Metal is going to win. All right, we have our final 4. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute versus So Let Them Burn. Stop. Okay. I think Highly Suspicious. Nah, what did I give So Let Them Burn? I know I didn't give it 5 stars. But man, that romance. I'm going to give it to Highly Suspicious. Let's not talk about it. Oh, no. No. That Self-Same Metal versus All Boys Aren't Blue. This is, because I would say All Boys Aren't Blue is my number 1 nonfiction read of the year. And That Self-Same Metal might be, I don't know, is it my number 1 fiction read of the year? It's feels like it might be, feels like it's kind of near the top situation. In my head, All Boys Aren't Blue is the winner. I don't know if I'll regret that or not. Then we have Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute versus All Boys Aren't Blue. 2 what I would consider 5-star reads. This is, I feel like that final 4 situation was just, that was unfair. I'm gonna give it to All Boys Aren't Blue. That's who's gonna win. So, but if you can't tell, I had some very good queer reads, and I'll go through all of my 5-star reads in a later Bookmas video. But let me know what your favorite queer read of this year was. would your bracket have played out very similarly? Because let's just say there was some tough competition here, and those queer fantasy reads, I think if I'm not such just a romance lover, those queer fantasy reads really would have pulled through. But yeah, let me know what's on your queer TBR for 2025, because I'm curious to see what we'll be competing or reading next year, and I'll see you in the next Bookmas video.